Why do men watch porn? In specific, why do men that are struggling with a pornography addiction stay stuck in this relapse recovery cycle? If you and I stood here long enough and discussed this, we could come up with an infinite amount of reasons as to why men explain the reasons why they look at porn. They're stressed, anxious, alone, isolated, feeling rejected. Wife has rejected them. They don't feel close and connected. They don't feel purposeful. They don't feel connected to a bigger mission in their life. They don't feel fulfilled. These reasons, these excuses are just scratching the surface as to the reasons as to why men justify their use with pornography. But in today's episode of The Real Man, I'm going to reveal to you, in my opinion, the biggest reason, the number one reason that keeps men addicted to pornography. For those of you that don't know, my name is Coach Frank Rich, founder of Rebuild Recovery and host of the Rebuilt Man podcast. And for the last 5 years, I dedicated my life to helping men just like you take back the reins of their life, conquer their addiction, and create a pathway to walking in real freedom. Our organization has helped over 1,500 men create a pathway to absolute freedom from pornography in just the last 5 years. And I've spoken with thousands of men over that length of time. We have documented thousands of submissions, consultations, and application forms. We review these as part of our process to see if a man is qualified and eligible to make it into our coaching program. It's a series of short questions to gather some intel on where the gentleman is, what his struggles are, and if we are, in fact, the right people that could help him. And in this form, in this application, one of the questions that we ask is, tell me about the struggle. I keep it simple. Tell me about your current struggle. And for those of you that are looking for some help, I'll actually drop this application form down below if you're interested in getting some help to help you conquer your addiction. We are opening up spots here in the beginning of 2025. But tell me about your struggle, because I want to see, where is this man at in his journey? What things have he tried? What does he actually see as the challenge that's sitting in front of him? I've shared this in a few talks that I've given. I had the opportunity to speak to large organizations about internet safety, about pornography addiction, about the link between early exposure to porn and addiction later on in life. And here's the shocking thing about this question. What is your biggest struggle? More than 56% of the responses start with, I was introduced to porn at a young age. I was only 11 years old when I first got exposed. I started using pornography as an adolescent. It was in my teenage years that I began to use porn as a way to alleviate stress and loneliness. More than half of the responses when I asked the question, tell me about your struggle, will bring up the fact that they were a young child, a young man, pre-adult, as the precursor to telling me about their struggles. And I opened up the podcast here with the question, why do men watch porn? Specifically, why do men that are struggling with a pornography addiction stay stuck in the addictive cycle? Over 56% of the responses from one question will say, I was a young boy when I was first introduced, and it became a pattern for me to regulate and manage my stress. And I think a lot of men, once they reach a point later on in life, they're in a relationship, they're in a marriage, a sexless marriage, they feel disconnected from their wife. Their mind has now been warped and over-sexualized, so they see sex everywhere they go. The world is littered with women objectifying themselves. You have 1.5 million young women on OnlyFans. You have half of the female population walking around in gyms in public places, basically exposing themselves. So they see a world that has been sexualized, and then they connect the dot that the reason they go home and look at porn is because the world triggers them. It's the world's fault. If only she didn't dress that way, if only my wife had sex with me, if only I felt connected to my children, if only I had a bigger purpose and mission in my life, I wouldn't need this thing to escape to. But remember, more than half of these men saw it at a time when their brain was not developed. So here's been my understanding, and this has been my thesis that I've put together over the last 5 years of speaking with thousands of men and helping countless men create a pathway to freedom, is it all starts in our mind. Our struggles, our challenges, our issues and addiction with pornography all starts upstairs. So if we believe it's the world's fault, then we're never going to be able to take the responsibility for ourselves. If we believe it's because we've been objected, if we believe that it's because women over-sexualize themselves, if we believe that pornography is just a natural behavior for most men, then yeah, we're going to stay stuck. But here's what's happened, right? Is at a young age, men find pornography. When they're stressed, they run to pornography because it alleviates their stress. When they're anxious, they run to pornography because it alleviates their anxiety. When they're alone, they run to pornography because it makes them feel connected. And let's be honest, man, it's good at doing all of those things. If you're stressed, porn is really good at de-stressing you in the short term. If you're feeling anxious, porn is really good at alleviating your anxiety in the short term. If you're feeling alone, porn will make you feel connected for a short minute in the short term. And as a young man, you can't decipher between, is this real? Is this fake? Is this pleasure seeking? Is this a fantasy? Or is this actually the real world that I've been born into? A young man's brain cannot determine the difference between those two things. So at 12, 13, 14, 17, 18, 22, 25, 27 years old, he's developing these patternistic behaviors. When I'm stressed, porn makes me feel less stressed. When I'm anxious, porn makes my anxiety go away. When I'm alone, porn makes me feel connected in the short term. Now what's happened is his brain literally has created neurological pathways that when you feel this way, in order to solve that problem, go do this thing. It's created a neurological pattern based upon physiological responses in his body. When I feel this way, when I do this thing, it alleviates that feeling. This is the cycle of addiction now, though, because what happens is porn is incredibly addictive. It's powerful, more powerful than you in many instances. So what your brain's going to begin to do, what your body's going to begin to do is create these sensations over here, right? If every time you feel stress, porn introduces itself, porn comes into the picture and alleviates your stress, and the feelings of porn are more powerful than the feelings of stress, then your body begins to become addicted to the pleasure-seeking pornography. So you may not even have real stress in your life, but your body and your brain is going to create false senses of stress so that you go give it its drug. You may not deal with anxiety, but your body will produce the feelings of anxiousness because it needs its drug. You can be in a home with a family. You can be in a room with other people, but your body will make you feel alone because it wants its drug. So when we understand that men watch porn because their body is creating physiological responses and emotional feelings to give it the drug that at a young age you introduced it to. Now we can step back and be like, okay, it's none of these other reasons. This has all just been patternistic behavior programming inside of me. And if I can recognize that if I've gone down the pathway of creating that, that means I can go down the pathway of reversing it. So do you watch porn when you're stressed? Sure. Do you watch porn when you're anxious? Sure. Do you watch porn when you're rejected? Sure. But those are all programs that are running. And until you recognize that your body is seeking this drug, that you've given it for a decade or longer, Now you can step back and be like, okay, when I feel this way, I don't want to give into it. What are some better ways to alleviate these feelings? So it's been my experience, belief, and opinion that most men that are struggling with a pornography addiction don't have high sex drive, don't suffer with bigger feelings of aloneness and isolation, don't have higher levels of stress, don't have more intense feelings of anxiety. All they have, though, is a lack of a better way that when those feelings occur, how to alleviate them. And if we can equip you with real tools in the moment to regulate those physiological responses, then you can begin to take back control of your life in this addiction. So the reason men watch porn is because at a young age, they were programming themselves for this drug, and now their body wants the drug more than it wants anything else. So it creates these false senses of temptation, triggers, and urges to go give it the thing that it really wants. Is that the case with you? I'd love to hear from you. So drop some comments down below. Did today's episode resonate? Was there an aha moment that clicked? Was there something that went off inside of you as you were listening to today's episode? Drop a comment down there in the show notes. Connect with me on Instagram if you're listening on the audio side, you guys. But like I said, down there in the show notes, down there in the description box below, I put a link to the application, the one I was referencing. 6-7 questions. I'm not exactly sure how many are on there, but it's very short. Take a couple minutes. And if your application is accepted, you'll move on to the next step, which will actually be booking a call to discuss getting some help. We've mastered this recovery thing, though, guys. It's not challenging. Our formula is proven and effective. And if you've been around long enough, you know that to be true. It takes the first step, though. It takes you recognizing that, hey, I need some help. So fill the application out, book a call. I'd love to discuss how we can help you this year in getting control of this addiction. But Coach Frank, your host of The Rebuilt Man, founder of Rebuilt Recovery. We love you guys. We'll see you in the next one.